Today we have Ashley Allen, Pam Thrun, Jen Garlie, and myself, Robin Steckel, to talk about the book Demon Copperhead. What did everybody think?
Pam, you look like you want to go.
The whole thing, it made me sad. I was sad and frustrated and I'm going to say angry and blessed all at the same time. I'm glad I was never in the system. This poor kid, the loss that he encountered, even his little life. I'm like, and if I could punch anybody, it would be that stoner guy. Sorry.
Yeah.
I echo
Resilient, right? I mean,
Yes.
that just kept resonating. Just the resilience that kid had from such a young age.
I like that word. And also the fact that he always expected the other shoe to drop constantly. Like, I'm just waiting. What 11-year-old or 14-year-old needs to worry about that? Go to school, play, have fun. Okay. Sorry.
It made me super sad. And at the part where he talked about the 2 times in his life that were, the good times in his life, and they passed him right on by, and he never even knew they were the good times. Because partially, right, he was waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, I too was just really sad. I texted Robin probably halfway through the book, and I was like, this book is so sad. I think I cried twice during it. which is actually very rare, because I feel like there's not many books that have made me do that. I do that in movies, but yeah, I feel like obviously it was sad, and it made me feel very lucky that I have never had to deal with anything like that in my life. But I really loved the ways that she wrote. I think it was a very stream of consciousness kind of feel, which granted, he always was feeling the other shoe was going to drop, but I also feel like there was a sense of, I don't know, there almost was a little light that was kind of just always in the distance, that I think maybe he thought something good was going to happen. I don't know. That's kind of a sense I got from it too.
I thought the book was not sad. I guess I thought of it a little bit differently. There were sad parts, but I just kept thinking, what a little fighter.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, this kid, he keeps going and keeps going. And I think each and every one of us can assimilate to some degree of a bad time or a sad time or a low time in all of our lives. But I thought that Barbara Kingsolver did a fantastic job of painting what any kid in foster care or any kid from any family could go through at any given time, because all it boils down to is one choice. And the choice that we make, and the choice that he made, or the choices that he wasn't given, but the choice he made after that. And I thought, boy, all of our lives could be so, so different from one choice, a yes or a no. Getting in a car, not getting in a car. Having a cigarette, not having a cigarette. Being in love with somebody and thinking that I'm going to do what they do in order for them to love me. It just, for me, it boiled down to choices that we make.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good, Robin.
I also thought it was interesting the times where the author went into great detail, and I'm thinking, oh, this is such a boring part. Why does she keep going over and over this part? And then in other parts, she seemed to just skim over parts that I thought would have been really interesting.
So I'm glad to hear someone else say that, because I will be honest there. And I love Barbara Kingsolver as an author. The Poisonwood Bible is still to this day one of my favorite books of all time. And so when I started seeing all the hype around this book, I thought, oh my gosh, I am going to breeze through this. It's big, it's thick, but I'm going to read it in just a matter of days. I struggled. There were many parts for me that I had to reread, because either there was so much detail, or it was glossed over and I was like, oh, okay, wait, I think I just read a whole page and I didn't capture it. There was a lot of that for me. I was surprised that I wasn't as engrossed as I thought I would be, that I can be with books.
Yeah, I definitely got lost as well. There were several times where I'm like, I just wish this book would end, not in a bad way, but I was just, it was so long. But like you said, there were parts where I had to go back as well. I found myself getting lost a lot. There was like a lot of movement happening, which is just like another testament to how turbulent his childhood was. I felt like I was having whiplash trying to figure out where he was living at any given time or who he was with, or like it was, he's in Tennessee and then he's, not, and then he's in Lee County. It's just, it was all over the place, but that was kind of where I was getting lost too. It's just, I thought those were really like needed parts to know, because I feel like a lot of what I was getting is just the importance of seasons and times in your lives too, because I felt she did a really good job of like, this was his season to be with that one fast. I can't remember. I got a lot of the names mixed up, to be honest. All the nicknames, that was what was getting me. His season to be on the farm, and then his season to be with that one family who couldn't manage money very well, and season with June. And but I was just blown away just at the character development in each one of his seasons, because you would see him get a little better and then take a few steps back and then get better, and then it was frustrating because you're rooting for him the whole time.
Yeah. I found myself, speaking of nicknames, I found myself changing the way I was actually pronouncing some of the names in my own head, like throughout the book, because his buddy, his buddy that he had throughout, I couldn't justify with how I was saying it in my head. I didn't like it, so I changed it.
Are you talking about Maggot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say Megan in my head, so I changed it to Megat.
Mago.
Yes.
Little French.
I've never done that while reading a book.
Sometimes when names are too difficult, I have done that. Just dumb them down so I can get past it and keep going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I always thought that Maggot was going to be okay, and he turned out to be almost worse than Demon.
Yeah.
I kept feeling for Demon the whole time, because it's like, just imagining that's your one, I hesitate to say cornerstone because he was a child, but he was the one kind of thing that was always there, despite all the other things. And then to see, he's going through a very similar situation with being strung out on drugs and stuff, but it's like to see that person go downhill.
Yeah.
And that person who's been there your whole life, while he may not be seeing that in himself when he was, strung out on drugs, it's like to see that in someone else, especially someone who is so crucial to your life, must have been really hard, especially at the end when he made the decision to kind of get clean and everything. So.
And I didn't think he was going to. I was surprised when he got clean.
I was too. I was surprised.
And it was really only in the last 5 chapters of the book. I was like, oh, I was hoping, I wanted to learn more about it.
Yeah.
But oh, and by the way.
I had a hard time with the drug mill and understanding the buying and the selling of the drugs. And then I thought, wait a minute. I remember a documentary on Netflix that they had, I think it was called The Pharmacist.
Yes.
Oh, yep. And I thought, this is exactly what she's trying to say, and how popular they are, and people do it for money or for pain relief. And I thought, wow, this really is an epidemic. And then I went back to when Jen's husband and I had a conversation a while ago about drugs and the pills and how prevalent they are. And I remember telling her husband, I can't believe how blindsided I am, and how, I guess, innocent I am and naive that I am, that this drug problem even exists. I mean,
Mhm.
when I think of drugs, I think of Advil and Tylenol. I would never think of OxyContin, fentanyl patch. I mean, I would never think of these things. And I just thought, wow, what a privileged life I've had that that's not even a thing for me. And then relating that back to the book and how that is how probably a lot of people get by and you just don't know about it.
I I'm so glad you brought up that. I think it was a documentary because when June started talking about, I guess, Kent and how he was like peddling, like it was kind of new on the scene. It made me think of that documentary immediately. And the whole time I was like, yeah, because in that one, I think the guy in the documentary is talking about how he kind of had to take a stand, I believe, because his son was kind of affected by that, obviously.
Yeah, yep.
It's so heartbreaking. She did a great job like personifying it and like making it very real, especially to someone who has very, very naive, like, and like you said, privileged. So
Well,
The
when you
other
don't, oh, go ahead, Robbie.
I was just going to say the other thing that I really enjoyed was his relationship with his teachers,
Mhm.
because I think every one of us can relate to a time where a teacher took the time to talk with us, to extend their heart, and that made me happy that he really connected with a teacher, somebody who genuinely was interested in him and his talent, and I really liked that part of the book.
Mm-hmm.
The football coach too. And for me, particularly with this season and seeing a coach that kind of did put faith in my son, and to see him thrive in lacrosse this year too. The timing was really great to be reading that at the same time and have that coach really put that faith in him and look at that development and that plan. I thought that was really cool. And it really speaks to, people outside of our family, our teachers, our coaches, those other people in our lives that can really be a positive influence.
And as well, oh, sorry, Pam, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I feel terrible cutting off, but to piggyback on that too, I think it was a kind of a breath of fresh air for him, especially knowing, I mean, Coach was not the best character we found. He had his demons as well,
Mhm.
but I think it was probably a breath of fresh air for Demon too, knowing that even I think his grandmother was like paying, and after those payments had kind of stopped, how he was still in it for Demon, saying, you know, you're allowed to stay, especially coming from the many foster situations where they were in it just for money. Like that, I think probably spoke to Demon more than even she could probably write down in the book.
Yeah.
Nobody else seemed to see his talent or the fact that they believed in him up until that art teacher, especially at that new school where she was like, oh, do you know how to draw this? Do you know how to draw that?
Yeah.
Can you do this? Can you do that? Here, use these paintbrushes, use this,
Yeah.
use that. And I mean, it gives me goosebumps because I'm like, that's all it takes is that one person. But sadly, when you've got all this other garbage and baggage, that stuff can creep in no matter how positive that outside influence can be on you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It almost goes back to It Takes a Village.
Mhm.
And this book showed the village that helped him get to where he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had those the mother figures of like June and Miss Annie, and then Mr. Armstrong, and I guess the Coach would be like a father figure in a way.
Yeah.
Here's a part that I did a little searching, and there was something online about Angus, and that Angus was really the true love of his life.
Mm.
And I read that probably 3/4 of the way through, maybe
Mm.
half of the way through, and I thought, I must be missing something. And then got to the end of the book, and then I thought, either I'm way off, I think love is something different, but I never thought that Angus was the love of his life. I thought that he thought of Angus as a sister, which he talked about every
Yeah.
now and again. But Angus, I didn't think was ever the love of his life. I always thought that it was Dory or the vision of clean Dory, not the vision of drug Dory.
See, that's what I think where I am on the opposite side. I believed pretty early on that Angus was going to be the love of his life, and mostly because, well, I guess because of two reasons. Is I think she held him accountable, which I think he needed, and I think he secretly appreciated that I guess she told it how it was, but also because I feel, I mean, it's a sister thing I thought I also was kind of contemplating about, but I think that he growing up the way he did and around the stuff that he did, I think he always had, in the end, I think he's a good moral person for the most part. Like, I think that he was so loyal to Dory, even in her last days. He had like a good compass. He may have had missteps and mistakes that he made, but in the end, like, I think he put a boundary there specifically because he respected that he was in her household and things like that. But I secretly, not secretly, I believed that he would fall in love with her. I don't think it was immediate though, but I think he subconsciously was falling in love with her over time.
Anybody else thinks that Angus was the love of his life?
I didn't connect with that either. I was more aligned with you, Robin. It felt like a sister type, familial type relationship. That slipped right over me. I did not pick that up.
That's so funny because
isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's so funny. No, I love hearing that side of it though, because I mean, I did feel like they had that bond, but I feel like the moment that I read about their interaction with each other, I was like, I feel like they're gonna fall for each other like later in the book. Like, I just got that immediately from it.
That's amazing.
But yeah, and I felt like Dory though, like Dory to me felt like that. To me, the whole relationship with Dory felt like a repeat of like him taking care of his mother. So that felt to me like a fake, like he thought that was what his idea of love was, but he was so used to taking care of his mother, he fell into that cycle and that felt familiar to him. And that's why he felt that love, because I think he missed his mother and it was like a trauma kind of bond.
Yeah.
I did not think of that whatsoever. That is really interesting.
It's so funny. I don't reread a lot of books. I just don't. But this one, given some of the challenges I was having and rereading, there were a few times, and I probably will, I kept thinking to myself, I would be fascinated to reread this book at some point and see what I captured differently and what resonates differently. So it'll probably be one of the few books that I read again.
Or listen to it on Audible. I didn't read the book per se. I did listen to it on Audible. I saw that it was going to be 16 hours. And I knew I was traveling down to Atlanta to Nashville. Ironically, then on my way to visit Ashley, I did listen to it there, and I listened to it on the way back to Atlanta. But I listened to it instead of read it. But now it makes me wonder, what would it be like to read it instead of listen to it?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do the opposite.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea too. I don't do a lot of books on audio, so that would be an interesting, that would be really good to do too, to get a different perspective. Well, who narrates it?
I can't think of what the guy's name is, but I could listen to his voice all day. He did not have an irritating voice at all. But I will say the difference to me in listening to a book on Audible versus reading it is we influctuate or use an influx from our own mindset, how we are reading it versus the author. So I think there's different influence when it comes to that. I feel like I'm talking really smart today. So
yeah, you are.
But I do, because they will fluctuate and accentuate what they want to do. Whereas when you're reading it on your own, you're setting your own tone.
Yeah.
Tone.
Did you listen or read it, Ashley? You listened, right, Pam?
I listened. Yep.
Okay,
I'm on team read like you, Jen.
okay, I was like, am I the only one that read the
No,
actual?
and it's hilarious. Yeah, I have the physical, and it's hilarious too, because I remember when Robin first, we decided on this book, she's like, you better get it soon. It's really long. You better get it soon. And I was like, it can't be that long. So I ordered it, and then it got delayed, and I was like struggling getting through it so
Yeah.
quickly. But I did, yeah, it really was just the way she wrote, which I think, again, the book itself was beautifully written. It's
Yeah.
just a real struggle if you're reading it, because it is so stream of consciousness, which
Yes.
I think adds to just the book itself, because you are literally in the mind of Demon. And really, like, the way he narrates, he's very intelligent as a kid. I mean, he's definitely got smarts about him. It's just, yeah, he is where he is in life. And it was very interesting to see that. And yeah, how despite growing up the way he did, he was so self-aware, and but he was severely behind in a way, but also so advanced. Like, he had so much adult knowledge just because of his upbringing, yet he was just so far behind in a way at the same time, which is fascinating.
Was definitely a caregiver for his mother. That is 100%.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So when he met Angus, I know her real name is Agnes, but when he met her, then I feel like there was almost a little bit of relief there, because now somebody was kind of parenting him a little bit. Not, I mean, I know the coach was, I know he had other people, but I just feel like it was kind of I'm going to say relief, which might not be the correct word, but it was like, oof, okay, so maybe this is what it's supposed to be. But then you go back to the dysfunction in his childhood and how he was raised, and it's like, oh, okay, so this is what I'm going to fall back into.
I also think he found a sense of comfort, and again with Angus too, I loved them from the beginning, but I think with her, he found a sense of like kinship in a way, because she also was kind of caretaking her father, maybe not to the extent of that, but I mean, she was helping him get out of his drunken nights in the office and such. So he, I'm sure, had a little bit of probably relief and someone he could talk to, who had maybe not done it to that extent, but was also a caretaker in a way.
After I read the book, I did go and look a little bit more into the book, what some people had for ideas. And then the trigger warnings, those are new to me. I didn't realize that people put trigger warnings out there. And it talked about child neglect, abandonment, OxyContin, drug use. And that was another part that I had read early on, was that it talked a lot about, it didn't say anything about a trigger warning, but it did talk about drug use. And I thought, in the beginning, when he and Dory were just experimenting, I thought, there's no drug use here. And then obviously chapters later, we find out that he is absolutely addicted. You can go from being completely sober to being completely addicted to painkillers or what have you.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. And it probably took as long to detox from those as it was for him to get addicted. And I thought, wow, what a vicious cycle.
Who else was kind of, I guess, relates in a way because of just the the kingpin and such, but who else was blown away by all the parts about like fast forward and that I was not expecting that at all. Like I kind of think once I saw that he was like dealing drugs, was that, I guess, trafficking drugs or whatever he was doing. I kind of felt like it was going to end very badly, but I did not expect that level of like detail and how it ended, and where, especially the symbolism of where it ended.
Yeah, I did not anticipate that.
I was blown away.
Yeah, fast forward, it was like, oh, he was this all-star, he was this, he was that, and he's abusive and dealing drugs but in his defense, you get into the system, you get into that cycle, and it's fight or flight. Like, what are you supposed to do? It's the only life you know.
Yeah.
It broke my heart for Emmy because I really liked her. It's, yeah. And then I was glad to see that it had a somewhat happier ending for her.
Dory, however, did not have a happy ending.
No.
I
No.
really thought that it felt like Demon wanted to get clean early. It felt like he didn't really want to go down the drug route.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that maybe they would get clean together, but that certainly wasn't a part of the story. So that was
No.
probably one of the saddest parts, that he wanted to get clean, but she didn't. Or at least that's how I felt it went. And that was one of the saddest parts in this book for me, was that he wasn't strong enough to stand up on his own and to do the things that he wanted to. He let somebody else
Yeah.
dictate his life. And that for me was the saddest part.
And correct me if I'm wrong too, Robin. I don't believe that Dory was a drug user at the beginning. It was really after her father's passing, wasn't it? Or maybe I misread
No, it was before, because she was getting the fentanyl patches from the home health nurses.
Oh, I guess I just didn't pick up on that. I thought it only started happening after
No.
okay. That was a part that I missed because it was too long. So,
Yeah.
we got really bad. I think it probably got a lot worse though after.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why
Yeah.
I picked it up. It started becoming obvious after he passed. I'm sure because of just the stress of obviously
Yeah.
living on your own in a house that you are very ill equipped to take care of in the first place. And yeah. It's just a bunch of poor children being caretakers to all their, I mean, if you think about it,
Yeah.
they're all caretakers to their families, which is just heartbreaking.
What are the best parts of the book for each of you?
Ooh, I know mine.
Go ahead.
Okay. I obviously growing up in Florida have loved the ocean. So that whole subplot of him wanting to go to the ocean just like made my heart so happy. It was
Yes.
sad that he missed it twice, but I was so
Yeah.
hoping by the end of the book, I was like, if he doesn't get to the ocean by the end of this book,
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose my mind. And then it made me happy because I love Angus. So she was the one who ultimately was going to take him. So that just made me so happy. And I loved that him growing up, I don't know, there was something so beautiful about him growing up in this super hard knocked life. And just that the innocence of wanting to see the ocean to me was such a beautiful, like, reminder of like the simple things in life and like,
Mhm.
and just how innocent that was for him and how there was still that thing like in the distance that he wanted. Anyways, yeah.
I love that, right? Like we've acknowledged he was, because of his circumstances, for lack of a better term, so wise beyond his years, or right, had to live beyond his years, but yet such a childlike innocence of just wanting to go to the ocean. That really resonates with me.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, that's really cool.
What about y'all?
Go ahead, Pam.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm still fixated on the art teacher and the opportunity that he got. Like, I just think if he would not have traveled and met that hooker in the bathroom at that truck stop who stole his money.
Oh my gosh.
It's in a peanut butter jar. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
I wanted to stab her.
yep.
But if he would not have went to see his grandma, if he would not have been determined, all those things, and been put into that football, you know what I mean? Like living in the mansion where there was all these rooms and never have met that art teacher. It's like that to me was a pivotal point for him.
So that was your favorite part of the book?
Probably. Yeah. I love the ocean part too. Don't get me wrong. I love the ocean. The ocean is my other love language. So take me
I
to
was
the
still
water.
saying, yeah, you go there all the time.
For me, it was the point of when he realized, without realizing, that he had real talent in drawing. So it was the one thing in his life that he could lean on and do his own thing, while other people in other situations helped with the comics. He still was able to do his own thing. He was his own person. He didn't rely on anybody. He worked together with Tommy, which I loved that part of the two foster kids coming back together after all. But for him to realize without realizing his talent and then continued to work on his art talent was probably the happy part for me for him.
Yeah, good one.
Is Tommy the one who put the clothespin on his shirt so that if he didn't turn the water off at the farm, at Crinky's farm or whatever, whoever that guy was?
Creaky
Yeah.
Farms? I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got them all mixed up. I was so confused by the end on who was who.
Who was who? Yeah, there were
Yes.
so many different.
The nicknames were the
Stages.
hardest part.
And then it went, so the rehab part, there were a bunch of nicknames there too. And
Yeah.
by that
Gizmo and
point,
Viking and
yeah, by that point, I wasn't even paying any attention to them. Because again, I thought, why are we going through probably one of the hardest 3 years of his life? And then we're going through it within seconds,
Yeah.
picking up all these people that really, there was very little character development with any of those people. And then all of a sudden he's at the mansion with Angus again. And that's
Yeah.
how it just
Mm.
seemed very strict. Like she just wanted the book to be done and we're over again. So that again, from what I
Yeah.
said at the beginning, like mass details about the 4th of July picnic and sitting, sitting out there watching the fireworks. And it went on and on and on and on. And then we go through 3 years at the fastest pace ever in zero
Yeah.
character development. I just found that odd, especially for Barbara Kingsolver. I've
Yeah.
read The Bean Trees and she's amazing with character development.
Yeah.
It just struck me as very weird.
Do you think this was just, in your opinion only, do you think that was just like Ashley was talking about earlier, like a season? It was a season. So it was just a brief introduction of these people that he met. I mean, is that what you're trying to say? Because obviously we didn't get to know them like we did Angus and Dory and.
I don't even know if it was a season. It was,
my
I don't know.
my suspicion is that it was very mundane. Like, and not that I don't believe that, because I'm sure he definitely discusses it at the beginning where he was like, it is hard. It's like, you're taking care of yourself and all of that. But I think even in the end of the book, he mentions like, basically you wake up, you go to the bathroom. Like he was talking about just how absolutely mundane it is to live, I guess, those 3 years. So I wonder if it's just because a way to like echo the sentiment of just how boring it was.
Yeah.
But that's the only way I can explain away the part. Because I too was very sad that we didn't get more into detail just because of, or just the inner monologue of having to fight with yourself about it. We got like 4 paragraphs and that's it.
Yeah.
That's really what I wanted to hear. I mean, this
Yeah.
kid is addicted to oxy and fentanyl.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's just clean and sober after 3 years. I wanted to hear about his struggles.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, but that would have made the book about 47 hours and
Right.
three big books. So,
Yeah.
and Robin, I don't know how yours was only 16 hours. Mine was 22. So I must listen at a slower pace than you do.
I normally listen to books at 1.25, but I knew I was not going to hit it. So I cranked it up to 1.5.
Oh,
I did listen at 1.75 for a while. So because I knew I had to get through this book.
I'm
So
so glad that I'm not the only one. I'm so glad that even the audiobooks took people to the same thing. It's like, I gotta get through this book.
and I think I would have retained even less, especially if I was trying to listen and listen that quickly. Oh, I give you a ton of credit.
Yeah.
I paid attention, let me tell you.
Yeah.
That would be like one of those people on drugs.
Wow.
I enjoyed the book. Like I said, I was really frustrated. It makes me sad for these kids that have to go through this stuff. There's drug and alcohol history in my family and my mom's family and my dad's family. I mean, it's everywhere. We see it around town. all that stuff. But it's like to actually hear this young boy talk about his, I mean, just from birth, even, you know, his mom was on drugs and, you know, I mean, all these people that he encounters that are on drugs, and then he's in this system, and it's like, oh, you just don't ever want anyone to get in there. So that just made me sad. It was very heavy.
I also noticed one thing, and maybe let me know if you guys felt the same way, but in all of the interactions he had, I felt like even if he disagreed with what they did, I feel like he still held a sense of like non-judgmentalness for most of it. And maybe I'm misreading it, but I felt like maybe you don't agree with the stuff, but you also don't judge the people for the means of how they're getting. Like even when he was talking about his mom in the first few chapters, he was describing her, but in the end, like I reread it and I was like, he's not really judging her. He's kind of just stating off facts. And I don't know, that's how I read it. And I thought that was very interesting given the upbringing.
Did you like the book, Ashley?
Yeah, I liked it. It was really long though. Yeah.
Jen, what are your thoughts, Jen?
I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Again, I thought I would. I typically really resonate really quickly. And yeah, I think with the length and the amount of detail, and I don't know if it was just because it was a stream of consciousness, if I maybe don't resonate with that type. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it to the point that I definitely think I will reread it at some point. And that will be an investment. But I didn't, right? Like it doesn't rise to maybe even the top 5 books I've read this year. So that surprised me in and of itself.
I liked it, and then I didn't like it, and then I liked it, and then I didn't like it. And I think the parts that I didn't like were the detail and all of the minutia.
Yeah.
But then without it, would I have liked the book? Probably not. So overall, I ended up even liking the not so much liking because it added so much to the book. Overall, yes, I really did like it. Yes, it was long. But then again, we went through 18 some years of this kid's life.
That's true. Yes.
It made me want a live action make of this movie or a movie made. Did you I found myself picturing the exact people who I thought would be in each role.
Well, tell us.
Well, I mean, like specifically Angus though. I don't know why, but like what is it? I think it's in oh gosh, what movie is she in? I think it's Ginny and Georgia. Did you ever see that TV show?
Oh, yes.
I think Max would be a perfect Angus.
Yes, that is amazing.
The whole time I was like, that's Max the whole time. But yeah, and I not that I knew characters, she was the only one that I could pinpoint as like an actual actress. But I was just picturing like who I think would be in each spot. You know, I just really think this would lend itself to a really good movie.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that.
I think this would be an excellent movie. And I can completely see all the places, Tennessee, going up to Richmond, Virginia. I could see down to Atlanta, trying to find Emmy. I could picture the whole movie in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be excellent. I hope they do make a. And the whole time, I also didn't know until I think I was sending a link to a friend about that. I didn't, or maybe I was looking in. I just read that it was a modern take on David Copperfield.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
It makes me want to go read that too. I think I read that in high school, right? And so I even debated before starting this. I was like, do I try to read that first? And clearly not enough time. But it did. It made me want to go read that.
Yeah, I've never read it before, but I feel like I know a little bit about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that would be very interesting to read and just to be able to do. I mean, someone should do that as like that sounds like something we would have done in high school is read this and David Copperfield and then somehow do
And
an essay on that or
Do the
something.
compare and contrast. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. That would
Which
be really
really, for me, I mean, she is such an amazing author.
Mhm.
The skill, I
Mhm.
am always in awe.
Yeah, she's very good. I saw a brief interview with her about Demon Copperhead, and
Mhm.
somebody had made the comment about it's her best book ever. And she said,
Mhm.
"Well, I've been writing for 20 some years. I hope so." It was
I
so
love a little bit
cute.
of humor. Yeah.
That is cute. Yeah.
It was cute.
Yeah.
I have not read David Copperfield either, and I thought the same thing. Should I try to read it first? And I thought, there's no way I can listen to these two books and get through it. But
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
go back and I will read David Copperfield.
Yeah. And now it's funny too. This is just completely aside. I'm now that Jen, you may have done this too, but knowing what we know from the book, it's been fun to look at all the pictures now because they
Yes.
all make sense.
They
And you're like,
all make sense now.
Yep.
I just thought it was a random, right? Like, oh, that's
Yeah.
nice. And
Yep.
now they
Like
all
the
make
hats and
sense.
stuff. Yeah. I just
Yep.
love it. It's so cool.
The next book club book is There Are No Stupid Questions in Science by Leah Elson. And we will actually have Leah Elson on the podcast with us discussing her book. So if
Oh,
anybody
that's nice.
would like to join us, we would absolutely love to have you on discussing the book with Leah.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
So
Yes,
excited.
very exciting.
Can't wait.
Tell me that again. You know, I'm going to ask you 6 more times, but
There are no stupid questions in science.
okay. And that's going to be on Amazon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, on our way out the door, you can
Yeah.
find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can always reach us at icandoanythingpod@gmail.com. And until next time,
Stay awesome.
and keep reaching for your anything.